Paalam presents ANUBHAV Festival.
Theme: Tukkadas in concert.
Paalam takes great pleasure in welcoming you all to the ANUBHAV Festival, which is all about experiencing the beauty of our performing arts. Every year, Paalam brings to you this ANUBHAV Festival with a very unique theme. And this year also, we come to you with a unique theme titled Tukkada Concerts, which is going to be from 18th March to 22nd March, daily at 6:30 p.m. If we look at the Carnatic Kacheri itself, we see that in the modern period, it could be divided into three segments. That is the Kriti portion, where we have a lot of Kritis presented with Manodharma aspects. Then the main Ragam Tanam Pallavi, which has an elaborate Manodharma in terms of Ragam, Tanam, Neraval, Swaram, Taniyavartanam, and so on. After this comes the Tukkada part, which is really very, very interesting, as it is both enlightening and entertaining to the audience. If we look at the history of our concerts itself, we see that in earlier times, the number of pieces performed in a concert were minimal, and we did not have anything called the Tukkadas. But when these concerts moved from courts patronage to the larger audience in sabhas and other organizations, we see that the concert itself got thrown open to a larger audience, which consisted of both the knowledgeable Rasika as well as the lay Rasika. So thus to cater to the entire gamut of the audience, this kind of a concert format was devised, where we had really heavy stuff in the front portion and later on the Tukkadas as part of the concert. So thus we see that in any concert, the audience actually looks forward to these Tukkada items, which are very, very appealing, interesting and entertaining. Let us look at some of the Tukkadas that are presented in our concerts. Right after the Taniyavartanam, we see that a bright Virtam is what lends a beauty to the whole concerts itself in terms of where the melody, the Raga Bhava, the lyrics all come together hand in hand to give you a beautiful garland. This Virtam may be in different languages, it may be in a single Ragam or a Raga Malika, but nevertheless it is very, very beautiful. Apart from this, we also see that we have other kind of varieties like the Padam, the Javali, the Tarangums, Jayadevar's Ashtapadi, Annamacharya, Kirtanas, the devotional pieces like Thevaram, Divya Pravandam, Tiruppugal, the lilting Thillanas, and then of course we have the folk melodies in the Kavadi Chindis, and we also see that a later development has been the inclusion of the Abangs and Bhajans as part of our concert repertoire also. Why? Now even regional songs have become a part of the Tukkada pieces, with artists rendering pieces in Marathi, Bengali, Malayalam and so on. Apart from this, we also have compositions of Bharatiyar and other contemporary composers as well. Thus we see that the Tukkada as such, the whole section, offers a wide variety to the listener. This Tukkada festival, the concerts that we are going to feature in this festival, is going to give you such a variety fair, a wide gamut of all the Tukkadas that you get to hear in the concert. Of course, in the normal concert, you may not get to hear all of them together. So this is going to be a feast where our artists have meticulously, they have planned the concert such that they are able to represent at least most of the Tukkada forms that are presented in our concerts. Since this festival features only Tukkada pieces, we have devised a unique kind of a format where there will be a main piece and an extension of that will be the Tukkadas to follow in this. The schedule for the whole festival is as follows. past few years, Paalam has been organizing all its festivals and other events online so that it is able to reach a wider spectrum of people all over the world and also help you watch from the comfort of your home. Of course, we bring to you all these events free of cost, but then there is definitely a cost involved in terms of the artist payment and the production. We have devised the joy of giving, where we request you to support our endeavors by contributing a minimum of rupees 500 for Indian citizens and $10 for those abroad. Of course, once again I say, if you feel our work is really worth it, I request you to join hands and support us. Here are the bank details. Namaskarams to all of you. Today I am very happy to present to you a lecture demonstration on the topic Tukkadas in Concerts. This is going to be a prelude to the wonderful Tukkada festival that Mudhra is going to feature to you in the consecutive days. We all know that Sri Ariyakudi Ramanuja Iyengar was instrumental in paving the way for a concert offering a variety fare. A variety fare in terms of the different ragas, the talas, the kala pramanas, different kinds of composers, different aspects of manodharma and so on. And though we do not see technically the terms like sub-main, main or tukkada being featured in books, we see that in practical terms, these are all used. Like for someone who has gone to a concert, we ask them, "Iniki main enna paadinar?" So immediately they'll say, "Today he took up Kambodi." Or what was the sub-main item? He may say Lathangi. Like that, we also see that the tukkada is a very colloquial term which is being used as part of the kacheri. Now, if you look at the terminology of tukkada, it's very, very interesting in the sense that it is not a Tamil word or a Telugu word. Rather, it is a Hindi word which means a small piece of a larger original. Like in Hindi, we say, "Ek tukda do," means from a big piece, you give me a small piece. That is how it is. And but in the Carnatic concerts, it has come to mean something different in the sense that the tukdas actually refer to the lighter pieces which come after the main item of a concert. And we see that these are actually thus sung towards the end of the concert. And again, also interestingly, we see that though this word has got a Hindi origin, it has got nothing to do with the Hindustani concert where they don't use the word tukkada at all. So, tukkada as a term has come to become indispensable terminology, I would say, as far as our Carnatic music is concerned. And tukkada again is not a form by itself. Rather, it composes a genre of forms. So the whole genre of forms which come under this are called the tukkadas. That is the ones which are featured in the post-main item. That is the main item. We have a big raga alapana, then maybe a rendikala kirtana or a ragam tanam pallavi, followed by neraval, kalpanaswaram, thaniyavartanam, etc. And after that is over, the lighter pieces come into the place and we see that a variety of these tukkada features in the concert. And another point I would like to make a mention is that though we call them lighter, they are not actually very light in the sense that some of them are very, very intricate and very difficult to perform also. So lighter probably would mean here that they do not have the element of manodharma aspect to it, like we don't do raga alapana or neraval or swaram. So in that sense, probably we could say that they are the lighter items of a concert. But then we see that, for example, if you take a padam or a javali, they are not light in any sense of the term, because performing a padam requires a lot of skill and expertise. And also we see that what is the purpose of such tukkadas is that when the music came down to the sabhas, we see that we have a variety fair of rasikas also. Some of them are very learned, connoisseurs. Some of them are what we call as a lay rasika, who just likes to listen to music for the joy of it. So that way we see that our kacheris are so beautifully tailored, where it offers a rich variety fare both for the learned, the knowledgeable kind of rasikas, as well as for those who look for the entertainment element in our kacheri. And in this sense, again, we owe a lot of gratitude to Sri Arikudi Ramanuja Iyengar, who made a perfect blend of education and entertainment for the people. And thus we see that these lighter elements became a part of the concert. And songs in which music is simple and attractive and lyrics more interesting and understandable compared to a main kriti. This is very important because when you are singing a beautiful Virtam in Tamil, or a Thevaram, or a Tirpugal, or a Dasar Padam, or a Annamacharya Kriti, they are all in very simple kind of language and much more simply tuned. So that way it attracts everybody's listening, in terms of the melody, we see that they are more attractive. And also they are not as intricate as probably if you could give an example of an Akshay Linga Vibho or a Chakkani Raja. They are all very, very complex in terms of the building of the sangatis and building of the ragas and so on. Here it is much more lighter and much more simple. And that is why you see that the compositions like Jagadodarana or Yeppa Varuvaro or Kurayunrumillai or Yennavam Tavam Seidane, these kind of compositions have caught on very well with the rasikas. And how many times ever you listen to these pieces, every time you feel that freshness when you're listening to it. That's the kind of variety these kind of tukkadas can provide, where you may have heard that Enna Tavam Seidane 100 times in your life. But when again an artist performs it, you find it very interesting and beautiful because of the fact that it has got something very special to offer to you in terms of the melody, in terms of the simplicity of the lyrics, in terms of a simple kind of a rhythm, and so on. And earlier we see that these also included songs in local languages. Mainly we see that in earlier times, probably at the time of Ariyakudi Ramanuja Iyengar, and later on that period, you see that many Tamil compositions, Telugu compositions, Sanskrit compositions were also part of the tukkadas. But now, with music becoming much more global, we see that Abangs, bhajans, why even sometimes I saw somebody sing a Bengali song as a part of the tukkada. So the tukkada has come to actually take in a huge variety fare, I would say. And what is the purpose of these tukkadas? As I mentioned earlier also, after the heavy manodharma coming in, we see that the tukkada brings some kind of a beautiful relief, a breezy kind of a relief. And here, I would, before going into all the tukkada forms, probably make a comparison of this whole structure of our kacheri to a traditional kalyana sapadu, where you see that you have everything in the right proportion. That is what Ariyakudi stands for in terms of, like, you have a variety. If you think of a kalyana sapadu, you have the payasam, the pachadi, the kootu, the parupusli, then you have all the sweets, and then the urga, vadai, then the sambar, rasam, everything is there. And also we must remember that they, the stalwarts, the great Mahans, had kept all these in proper proportion as far as the food is concerned, or as whether it's a concert. You cannot take the payasam the way you take a sambar sadam or a rasam sadam. It has got its own place. Nor can you take a pickle the way you take a poriyal. So everything has got its place, its proportion, everything. And that also applies to our music, where our great, the stalwarts, the Mahans who tailored this and paved the way for us, they saw to it that the main item always took the maximum time. The sub-main had a lesser time. The tukkadas, of course, were in the fag end. And but this example I was giving about the traditional Kalyana Sapadu probably 10 years back, it applied much more. Today, I would probably compare it more to a buffet, because of the fact that we have changed our structure so much based on the time available, based on many other factors. We see that it has become more like a buffet in the sense that we have the soup, the starter. Then what is important here, why I call it a buffet, is the fact that if you go to a marriage, the caterer and the wedding party decides as to what items will feature in that particular buffet. So similarly, now the artist has got the choice of what he would like to feature and how he would like to feature. Sometimes they may seem disproportionate also to us. But then today is the time when everybody has got the freedom of speech. It's become the freedom of music, where everybody starts doing things the way they want. And as far as the Tukkadas again coming here, I would compare it to the variety of desserts that we serve in a buffet. Like you may have the gulab jamun, the rasmalai, then some traditional sweets, the ice cream, etc. So similarly, we see that the Tukkadas are also have variety fare here. And the choice of which Tukkada an artist would feature in a concert depends totally on his choice. So it's not like that after the main item, only this Tukkada has to be featured or that Tukkada has to be featured. So the choice is totally that of the musician as to what he would like to feature. And finally, of course, the Mangalam comes. You can compare it to the Bida or the Vithala Pak that you have at the end, like in the form of digesting the whole process. I would say that this also helps us. The Mangalam kind of, brings a grand finale to the whole concert and gives it a beautiful, peaceful ending. Now coming to the Tukkada forms that we have in our Kacheri. It is very, very interesting to see that our Carnatic music is one of the most beautiful systems, I would say, because it has got that magnanimity, I would say, in terms of absorbing the best elements from various corners. Here, though the Kacheri as such is built up on Kritis, if you look at the Tukkadas, you see that in the Tukkadas, we have the devotional elements, that is the devotional forms, like the Tevaram, Tirupugal, Divya Pravandam, and all these kinds of things. Then if you look at the other bhajana tradition and other things, you see the Narayana Tirtha Tarangam, Purandaradasar Devarnama, or the Ashtapadi, all these coming in. Look at the bit further into the folk music, you see the Kavadi Chinde and other aspects of the folk music have come to be absorbed into our music. Go a bit further into the Hindustani realms, and you would see that the Abangs, bhajans, and other regional songs have also come to become a part of the Tukkada. That way, I would say that in this sense, if you compare it to the Hindustani music or anywhere else in the world, you see that our Carnatic music is one system which has been really very, very open in terms of absorbing the best elements from various styles of music. We will first look into the Virtam, which is a beautiful element of our Carnatic music. Now, where is the place for the Virtam? That is the first thing. If you see, as I mentioned, we have what we call as the main item, where you have an elaborate kind of a raga alapana, followed by a rendigala kirtana, neraval swaram, and a very intricate taniyavartanam. So all this involves a lot of rhythm, melody, sahityam, everything coming together. Now after this, the Virtam, I would say, brings some kind of a relief in terms of a different kind, where this is sans any kind of thalam or rhythm. And what is a Virtam? It is a verse sung in Kacheri, usually after the main piece, and passages with beautiful meaning are taken and tuned to suitable ragas. So it may be a passage from a Tamil hymn, or it may be a passage from a shloka, but the point here is that it should carry some good meaning. Suppose, for example, there is a passage which says that, oh, this whole life is a waste, or I am suffering so much, oh God, I am filled with agony, and you keep on repeating that line again and again. I don't think it's going to serve any meaningful purpose. So chanting the beautiful name of God, or chanting something, giving some beautiful doctrines through that, or message through that Virtam, is very, very important. We will now look at one beautiful Virtam of Ramalinga Vallalar, Petrathai Thanai Magamarandalum, that song. We'll just look into it. I'll be singing it in just 2 ragas. And here also I would like to make a mention about the fact that the Virtam again is a beautiful form where the Raga Malika comes into existence, in the sense that the Virtam is set to multiple ragas. Sometimes you may have 2 ragas, 3 ragas, 4 ragas. And that glide, the transition from one raga to another, is also a beautiful experience. And here also it's important to remember that the raga chosen has to be very apt for the lyrics. So suppose you are pleading and you use a ragam like Athana, which is much more authoritative, I don't think the two would gel together. So the concept, this again of course depends on the singer and how he would like to conceive it. பெற்ற தாய் தன்னை மகமறந்தாலும், பெற்ற தாய் தன்னை மகமறந்தாலும், பிள்ளையை பெறும் தாய் மறந்தாலும், பிள்ளையை பெறும் தாய் மறந்தாலும், உற்றதே கத்தி உற்றதே கத்தி உயிர் மறந்தாலும், உற்றதே கத்தை உயிர் மறந்தாலும், உயிரை மேவிய உடல் மறந்தாலும், உயிரை மேவிய உடல் கற்றனில் ஜகம் கலை மறந்தாலும், கற்றனில் ஜகம் கலை மறந்தாலும், கண்கள் நின்று இமைப்பது மறந்தாலும், கண்கள் நின்று இமைப்பது மறந்தாலும், கண்கள் நின்று இமைப்பது மறந்தாலும், நற்றவர் தவர் உள்ளிருந்தோகோ, நற்றவர் தவர் உள்ளிருந்தோங்கும் நமச்சிவாயத்தை நான் மறவேனே, நமச்சிவாயத்தை 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 நான் மறவேனே, 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 நமச்சிவாயத்தை நான் மறவேனே. சிவாய நமவெல்றே, சிவாய நமவெல்றே, இடையரா சிந்தனை செய்வோமே. சதா 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 சிவாய அபாயம் ஒரு நாளும் இல்லை, அபாயம் ஒரு நாளும் இல்லை, அபாயம் ஒரு நாளும் இல்லை. பரமனோ அடங்க சேரவாரி உலகே. சிவாய நமவெல்றே, இடையரா சிந்தனை செய்வோமே. சதா சிவாய அலை போலும் ஓயா பிறவி மாறி மாறி, அலை போலும் ஓயா பிறவி மாறி மாறி, வரும் துன்பக் கடலில் கரையேறலாம், வரும் துன்பக் கடலில் கரையேறலாம். உலகநாதன் நம்மை ஆள எங்கும் நிறைந்திருக்க மறந்து தூய உழலாமல். உலகநாதன் நம்மை ஆள எங்கும் நிறைந்திருக்க மறந்து தூய உழலாமல். சதா சிவாய நமவெல்றே, இடையரா சிந்தனை செய்வோமே. சதா சிவாய Here you saw that after I sang the Virtam in Saveri and Hamsanandi, I took the song in Kuntalavarali. Of course, sometimes what the artist would do is that he will sing the Virtam in such a way that it leads to the main song. Probably he would end it also in Kundalavarali and continue the song in Kundalavarali. So these are all some things which are decided by the artist himself. And there is actually no strict or rigid rule as to how he should go about the Virtam. The next Tukkada item that is presented in a concert are the Padam and the Javali. Of course, today we see that it has become a rarity in concerts for the fact that concert durations themselves have become very less, about 1.5 hours duration. So Padam, if it has to be rendered in a very relaxed gait, it would take about more than 10 minutes, and it seems a bit appropriate or unappropriate, I would rather say. And also we see that the Padam requires a special expertise to perform. It's not that everybody can perform a Padam. Especially you know that the Dhanammal school, the Brinda Mukta and the lineage coming from them are experts in presenting the Padam. Though the Padam actually looks very much like a Kriti in terms of its structure of Pallavi, Anupallavi and Charanam, the way the notes, the intricacies are rendered are totally different, and they require a special training. So a person like me who has not been trained in Padam definitely cannot sing it and do justice to it. I may just sing it like a song, but then what is exactly required in terms of the nuances of the ragam to be projected in a Padam is something which has to be learned very carefully and intensely. Coming to what is a Padam, we see that in our Carnatic music is basically anchored to devotional, and basically we say that all the compositions that we render in a kacheri are based on gods and goddesses. It may be on Ganesha, Rama, Krishna, Ambal. Like this you see that every composition for that matter attempted by a Vagekara is based on some god or goddesses. And even when it is love, or the Shringara Rasa, we see that it is based on the Nayaka Nayaki Bhava. But however, in Padam and Javali, we see that even when they speak of divine love, we see that in this particular genre, they are far more explicit and uninhibited in their expression of what we call as the passion. And in the hands of the right lyricist and performed by a talented performer, we see that they are no less transcendental than most Carnatic composition. That is, when they are rendered very effectively, as I mentioned, by that particular people who are trained in this, it can sound very, very beautiful, replete with the Raga Bhava. And Padams, as I said, they also embody Shringara Rasa. And here basically the Nayaka represents the Paramatma and the Nayaki represents the Jivatma. So it is more like the union between the Nayaka and Nayaki, means here the Paramatma and the Jivatma. And as far as Padams are concerned, if you see the nature of the composition, they are very slow moving, and natural flow of music goes along with tender and evocative words of the song. And here we see that though there is Thalam, the Thalam actually does not come in the way of the Padam. It flows naturally as a beautiful background to the whole composition. Coming to the Javali, this is also based on Shringara Rasa. And the etymology, if you look for Javali, it comes from the Kannada word Javadi, which means lewd poetry. And in terms of the language, we see that the Javali is much more colloquial, I would say, and deal with more of mundane love. Whereas I was talking about the Padam, which is more about the divine love. Here it's more about the mundane kind of love that is being expressed as part of the Shringara Rasa. We'll now, before looking into it also, I would like to make a mention about the ragas that have been featured in Padams. Like you see the ragas like Ananda Bhairavi, very Rakti ragas like Ananda Bhairavi, Sahana, Mukhari, Ahiri, Husaini, Shurati, etc. And we know that Kshetragya is the Pitamaha or the father of Padams. And for Javalis, we have other composers like, we see that here in the case, I'm going to present to you one composition of Swati Tirunal. Like this, we also see that there are other composers of Padams and Javalis who have been there. Now I'll present to you one small Javali in Behag, a composition of Sri Swati Tirunal. Saramaina matalil to chalu chalu Saramaina matalil to chalu chalu Sami Saramaina matalil chalu chalu Sami Saramaina matalil to chalu chalu Sami Saramaina matalil to chalu chalu Sami Sarasaksha chalu chalu Paalam Radio. Paalam has been striving hard to use technology to the best so as to reach our Carnatic music to more and more people globally. Just by the click of a button, Rasikas can have access to unlimited free classical music all the time.
பிரத்யேகமாக கர்நாடக இசைக்காகவே பாலம் ரேடியோ. You are listening to Paalam Radio, exclusive Carnatic. Download free mobile app Paalam Radio from your Play Store and hear Paalam Radio.
The next form is the Divya Pravandam. These are basically hymns in praise of Narayana and his many forms. The Nalayira Divya Prabandham is a collection of about 4,000 hymns in Tamil by the 12 Alvars who lived from the 5th to the 8th century. And we must acknowledge the great contribution of Sri Nadamuni, who compiled all this. He lived in the 9th and 10th century and he compiled all these. He took the painstaking efforts, I would say, in terms of getting all these Divya Prabandhams collated, and then he made it available for us. And even now we see that in many temples, like in the Srirangam, we see that the chanting of the Divya Prabandham forms a part of the daily service. And among this, the Tirupavai by Andal is one prominent one, which all of you, I'm sure, during the Margazhi festival, you heard a lot of it being sung by musicians also. The Pasurams in praise of Thirumal, and where she gives a universal call to all to chant the glory of Lord Vishnu and yearns for everlasting happiness and service of the Lord. And the Tirupavai again owes its popularity to be sung so much to Sri Ariyakudi Ramanuja Iyengar, who set to tune all of them so beautifully. And I would also like to acknowledge the contribution of Dr. M.L. Vasantakumari in terms of popularizing these pasurams by singing them so beautifully. And now we will be presenting to you one of the pasurams. And here I would also like to make a mention about how Ariyakudi started off from the first pasuram in the Nate Ragam, and the last one ends in Shuruti. So very appropriately he has made the ragas for all these compositions, the Tirupavais. And first 5 are in the Gana ragas like Natai, Gaula, Arabi, Varali, Shri, followed by other ragas. We will now present to you Ari Madai Kanna in the ragam Varali. Ari Madai Kanna Undrene Kai Kadal Ari Madai Mudhra The next form featuring in the Tukkadas are the Tarangums. Here again, as I mentioned earlier, the Tarangams are not any kind of a Kriti format that we are talking about in terms of a Pallavi, Anupallavi or Charanam. Rather, they are Sanskrit opera. It is a Sanskrit opera by Sri Narayana Tirthar. And the whole work actually consists of 12 Tarangams with 153 songs, 302 slokas and 31 churnikas. And it actually depicts the life of Lord Krishna from his birth, the childhood pranks, and finally his marriage with Rukmini. And as I mentioned here, you see that there are shlokas and other things. But it's interesting how when it becomes a part of the concert, we eliminate all this and try to make it into a Pallavi, Anupallavi and Charanam format. So though there are many Charanams also here, we see that all those are actually deleted and we make it like a proper composition. And there is a mention of ragams like Bhairavi, Kambodi, Nadanama Kriya, Kalyani, Shankarabharnam, Neelambari, Ahiri, Mukhari, Saurashtram, Madhyamavati, etc. But here also we must understand that only names of ragas are mentioned, so we really do not know how they sounded. We do not have any notation for all these. So also it is seen that the same composition is rendered in different ragas and different tunes by different performers. So probably the same composition which I'm going to render now in Revati would be sung in Kambodi by somebody, Bhairavi by somebody, in Desh by somebody. So there is no actually rigid, in terms of the ragam, there is nothing rigid about it, and we can probably use our own imagination. That is how it works. Now I'll present to you one Tarangam, Nada Nada Makalaya, in the ragam Revati. Natha Natha Makalaya Nandanaldanum Saki Natha Natha Makalaya Nandanaldanum Saki Natha Natha The next form of Tukkadas that we are going to look into now is the Ashtapadis. The Ashtapadi refers to the Sanskrit hymns of the work Gita Govinda, written by Sri Jayadeva. He was a great devotee of Krishna who lived during the 12th century. And this particular work actually depicts esoteric spirituality. Ashtapadi, the name itself signifies that there are 8 steps. And each hymn that way has got here 8 couplets. And each of them have got 2 lines. And in total we see that there are 24 Ashtapadis. And what is very, very unique about this form is that they are sung all over the country in different ragas, different styles. So the same Ashtapadi would be probably put into a Hindustani style and sung by Hindustani musicians. They are sung in a different way when they are part of the bhajana tradition. The same thing is used in a dance in a different way. In Carnatic music, again, it's adapted so well that, again, here we do not sing all the 8 stanzas, but we make it a Pallavi Anupallavi format and present it more like a Kriti. Now I will present to you Chandana Charchita, the 4th Ashtapadi. We will listen to it now. Chandana Charchita Neelakale Bara Chandana Charchita Neelakale Bara Chandana Charchita Neelakale Bara Chandana Charchita Neelakale Bara Pita Vasana Under the category of Tukkadas, we also have the Utsava Sampradaya Kirtanas and the Divyanama Sankirtanas of Sri Thiagarajan. We know that Sri Thiagaraja was a follower of the Nama Siddhanta tradition, and a significant number of his songs are about the greatness of the Lord's name and the doctrine related to its recitation. And basically, we see that the tune of these compositions are very simple structured and also repetitive in nature. So probably this is also the reason that, he must have thought of how it is important to keep it simple so that it aids congregational singing, that is singing by everybody. Whether you are initiated into music or not, everybody can join in singing these beautiful songs. So that way we see that they are in very simple tunes. Second thing is that they're very repetitive in their nature. That is, all the charanams have the same kind of a tune throughout. So it's very easy to follow also. And the Utsava Sampradaya Kirtanas, for example, they are 24 songs based on the Shodasha Upachara, that is the 16 modes of worship that is there in our culture. And as I mentioned also, they are again simple in melody, but the literary quality of these compositions are very, very beautiful. We will now look into one such Utsava Sampradaya Kirtana. Nagumomu galavani namano aruni, nagumomu galavani namano aruni, jagamelu suruni janaki varuni, devadi devuni divya sundaruni, Shivasu devuni Sitaragavuni, Sukyana nidini Soma surya lochanuni, Ajnana tamahunu Anachu bhaskaruni, Nirmala karuni, Nikilaga karuni, Darbadi moshambu dayacheyu karuni, Bodhato palumaru pujachi nenaradiltu Shikagarajan nutuni, nagumomu galavani namanu aruni. In the Divyanama category, we have 78 songs, and these are also meant for congregational singing, and it was also sung by Sri Thiagaraja as a means of daily worship to Sri Lord Rama. Let us look into one composition. Vandanamo Raghunandana Setubandana Bhakta Chandana Rama Vandanamo Raghunandana Setubandana Bhakta Chandana Rama Vandanamo Raghunandana Shridhamana Here also we see that in all these compositions, the Divya Nama or the Utsava Sampradaya, there are multiple charanas, sometimes 8, 10, 20, many. But then we only sing a few charanas, and of course the Mudhra charana happens to be importantly included as part of it. As I mentioned earlier, devotion happens to be the main element of our Carnatic music, and all compositions are based on various gods and goddesses, which I mentioned earlier also. But sometimes we also present compositions on themes other than devotion. Like it may be about patriotism, something about the political aspect, something spiritual, about social themes, and so on. So when we talk about these other miscellaneous themes, immediately the person who comes to our mind is the Mahakavi Subramanya Bharatiyar, who dealt with so many varied kind of subjects as part of his poetry. And these poetries have been set to beautiful music by many musicians and sung as part of the Kacheri in the Tukkada area. We'll now look into one composition of Subramanya Bharatiyar, Kani Nilam Vendum Parashakti. Kani Nilam Vendum Parashakti, Kani Nilam Vendum, Kani Nilam Vendum Parashakti, Kani Nilam Vendum, Angu Thuvil Nadagiyadai Nanmadangal Uyya Niratinavai, Anda Kani Nilatidaye Or Maaligai Kattitara Venum, Angu Keni Aruginile Thennai Vara Keethum Ilanirum, Kani Nilam Vendum Parashakti, Kani Nilam Vendum, 10, 12 தென்னை மரங்கள் பக்கத்திலே வேணும், நல்ல முத்து சுடர்பாலே நிலா ஒளி முன்பு வர வேணும், அங்கே கத்தும் குயிலாசை சற்றே வந்து காதில் பட வேண்டும், கத்தும் குயிலாசை சற்றே வந்து காதில் பட வேண்டும், என்றன் சித்தம் மகிழ்ந்திடவே நன்றாயிள தெல்கள் வர வேண்டும், சித்தம் மகிழ்ந்திடவே நன்றாயிள தெல்கள் வர வேண்டும், காணி நிலம் வேண்டும் பராசக்தி, காணி நிலம் வேண்டும், பாட்டி கலந்திடவே அங்கே ஒரு பத்தினி பெண் வேணும், எங்கள் கூட்டு களியினிலே கவிதைகள் கொண்டு தர வேணும், அந்த காட்டு வெளியினிலே அம்மா நிழல் காவல் உற வேண்டும், காட்டு வெளியினிலே அம்மா நிழல் காவல் உற வேண்டும், எந்தன் பாட்டு திறத்தாலே, பாட்டு திறத்தாலே, எந்தன் பாட்டு திறத்தாலே இவ்வையத்தை பாலித்திட வேண்டும், எந்தன் பாட்டு திறத்தாலே இவ்வையத்தை பாலித்திட வேண்டும், காணி நிலம் வேண்டும் பராசக்தி, காணி நிலம் வேண்டும், ஆ As I mentioned earlier also, we have been gracious enough to absorb elements from various genres, and folk music is no exception. The Kavadi Chindu is a very beautiful aspect of the Tukkadas, where you see that the folk melodies have been absorbed and put to a beautiful tune. And among this, we know that Shri Annamalai Reddiyar, Periyasamy Thuran are some of the people who have contributed towards this genre of Kavadi Chindu. We'll just look into a small passage from one of them. அழகு தெய்வமாக வந்து பழனிமலை மீதில் நிற்போம், அழகு தெய்வமாக வந்து பழனிமலை மீதில் நிற்போம், ஆதிசக்தி அன்னை தந்தபாலன் அசுரதம்மை வென்றபடி அழகு தெய்வமாக வந்து பழனிமலை மீதில் நிற்போம், ஆதிசக்தி அன்னை தந்தபாலன் அசுரதம்மை வென்றபடி நல்ல அமுதம் என்றோர் தமிழில் பாடிடும் அன்பர் வாழவே கருணை செய்குடன் அரண குருவும் முருகா உயர்சீல என்றும் அருள் சுரந்தே காக்கும் This was an example of how folk music has been absorbed so beautifully into our Carnatic music system. The next form in this Tukkadas are the Tillanas. Tillana as such is a very unique form compared to all that we said earlier, where we combine not only the raga, thala and the sahitya, but it also involves very interesting jatis and solkatis. And that way it makes it a very lively and brisk piece. And you also see that the Tillanas are almost, when you have a concert, it is performed at the fag end of the concert to give it that kind of a lively finish. And as for the structure, we see that it is like a kriti in terms of having a pallavi, anupallavi and charanam. But the pallavi and anupallavi will have the jatis as part of the content, I would say. And the sahitya element comes in only in the first half of the charanam. Coming to some of the important composers, we see that one of the earliest composers of Tillanas is supposed to be Melattur Veerabhadrayya. And apart from him, there have been other composers like Swati Tirunal, Tanjavur Quadrat, Veena Sheshanna, Patnam Subramania Iyer, Balamurli Krishna, Muttaya Bhagavatar, and Papanasham Shivan Rukmani Ramani. And of course, among the contemporary, that is in the immediate recent, we could say Lalgudi Sri Jayaraman has contributed monumentally in terms of the Tillana repertoire. And almost every kacheri, if there is a Tillana, it features his composition. And here again, I would say that compared to the others, why this has caught on, I was just thinking, because he has used very light Hindustani-based ragas in most of the Tillanas, but given it that classy touch. So there is an element of lightness as well as classicism. And the rhythm is interwoven so beautifully and intricately that you actually, it seamlessly blends into the melody and you do not realize it unless you break it up and see what an intricate rhythmic aspect that he has involved in the Tillana itself. And ragas like Desh, Mand, Pahadi, Yamuna Kalyani, these kind of ragas have been very effectively used by him as part of the Tillanas. We'll now look into a Tillana in Surya Ragam by Dr. Rukmani Ramani. Tam 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 takadimi takadim dim dim tajanu takita tam 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 takadimi takadim dim dim tajanu takita takatalangu janu talangu takatum takitatum tikitatum takadimi takatam tam tam takadimi takadim dim dim tajanu takita takatalangu janu talangu takatum takadila tam 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 tagadimi tagadim dim dim tajanu tagida tagadalagu janu talagu tagatum tagatum tigragatum tagadimi tagadam koti surya prakasha koti surya prakasha koti surya prakasha nija bhakta koti hridaya nivasa koti surya prakasha nija bhakta koti hridaya nivasa shiva kumari தேடி வந்த அருகில் நாடி வந்த உன்னை பாடி வந்த சிவனே இடிலவரம் தாராய் தேடி வந்த அருகில் நாடி வந்த உன்னை பாடி வந்த சிவனே இடிலவரம் தாராய் தகுதி மிகன நடமாடிய பாதமே முகமல தனி நிகழ்ச்சிகள் உபை மாதன் தாம் தாம் த ஒரு பாதம் தகதீந்த தடையும் தாம் ததீந்த காலை தூக்கி தோம் தனம் த என்ற ஆடும் தாம் 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 தகதிமி தகதீம் தீம் தீம் தஜனு தகிட தகதலாகு ஜனு தலாகு தகதும் தகிததி திகுததும் தகதிமி தகதாம் தாம் Coming back to the language presentation and representation, I would say, we also have compositions of Sri Purandaradasar in the Kannada language and compositions of Sri Annamacharya also as part of the Tukkadas. This, of course, is very much like a kriti in terms of the Pallavi Anupallavi Charanam format, and you would have heard compositions like Krishnani Begane Baro or Yadavani Ba Yadukula Nandana in Purandaradasar, and Annamacharya, of course, many compositions popularized by so many composers like Bhava Mulona, Bhavayami Gopala Balam, and so on. The next Tukkada aspect I would like to deal with are the bhajans and abangs. Now, the bhajans actually are a form which was prevalent in North India. But it's very again interesting that when these bhajans are sung as part of the Tukkadas and Carnatic Kacheri, we see that we actually try to modify it in terms of the gamakas and other things to make it more Carnatic in its approach. So you would not see it as much with the flavor of the Hindustani jaru and mead that they present in a Hindustani concert, but they are modified very beautifully. Again, that's where I also say that our system is so beautiful that we take in elements, but then we try to modify and adapt it so beautifully that it becomes our very own. That is the beauty. In this context, let us now listen to one bhajan of Sri Swati Tirunal Vishweshwara in the ragam Sindhu Bhairavi. विश्वेश्वर दर्शन कर चल मन तुम दासी विश्वेश्वर दर्शन कर चल मन तुम दासी विश्वेश्वर दर्शन कर चल मन तुम course, when we look at the bhajans, we see that mainly the ones who have contributed towards it in the northern music is that of Meera, Tulsidas and so on. And these compositions also we see that are ideally crafted and presented as part of the Tukkadas in Carnatic Kacheris. The next one, which has become extremely popular, I would say, over the past few years, are the Abangs. Abangs are devotional songs in praise of Lord Vithala. And if you look at their origin and the context, we see that these were basically sung by the pilgrims while they were on their way to Pandharpur. And important composers of Abangs are Jnaneshwar, Tukaram, Eknath, etc. And also here we must understand that the Abangs, which are sung in Carnatic Kacheris or the bhajanas of our tradition, in the typical tradition of the Carnatic mold, we see that they've again been adapted and modified. So if you look at the Abangs in their original form, sung by North Indian musicians, they would be quite different. But also we see that ragas similar like Ahir Bhairav or a Desh or a Brindavani or some similar ragas which are there in both systems seems to have caught on more prominently, I would say, as part of the Abangs in the Carnatic Kacheri as part of the Tukkadas. We'll now listen to one Abang, Sadguru Vanchoni, in the ragam which is based on the Sarasangi. Sadguru Vanchoni sapade na soya, Sadguru Vanchoni sapade na soya, 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 Sadguru Vanchoni sapade na soya, dharave te paya adi adi, dharave te paya adi adi, Sadguru Vanchoni sapade na soya, Sadguru Vanchoni sapade na soya. आपना सरी के करते तकाल, आपना सरी के करते तकाल, नाई काल वेण दया लागे, नाई काल वेण दया लागे, सद्गुरु vanchoni sapade na soya, Sadguru Vanchoni sapade na soya. लोह परी साची न सागे उपमा, लोह परी साची न सागे उपमा, सद्गुरु महिमा अगाधाची, सद्गुरु महिमा अगाधाची, सद्गुरु Vanchoni sapade na soya, Sadguru Vanchoni sapade na soya, Tukamane
Paalam Archives, a compilation of archive video of PaalamTV. Download now from Play Store in any Android mobile phones. Download, sit back and enjoy anytime, anywhere. Paalam Archives, a compilation of archive video of PaalamTV.
Apart from this, we see that there are also contemporary composers whose compositions find an important place in the Kacheri format. Like, there are many composers who have composed very lilting melodies, and what is special here is that they are very simple in terms of the tune. The lyrics are also very, very simple. For example, if you take the composition Kandanal Mudalai Kadal Perigudedi, it's a very communicative thing. Or Kure Undrumillai Maramurti Kanna Kure Undrumillai. So these are all very, very communicative and simple lyrics which have a direct reach to the audience. Because really you need not decode anything to understand the meaning of these lyrics. They are like common language that we talk. And that is how the music is composed. The lyrics are also composed so that it directly reaches you, reaches the heart so beautifully. And if you look at all these kind of tukkadas that we have been talking about, we see that they've all been ideally crafted so beautifully to fit into our system. And one more of the devotional category which I have to make a mention here are the Thevarams and finally the Tirupugars. The Thevaram again are devotional hymns composed by the three important Saiva Tamil poets of the 7th and 8th century, Apparar, Sundarar and Sambandar. There are totally about 796 hymns and each contains a padigam, and each has got 4 lines and there are about 10-11 verses in this. And these are very, very important forms because of the fact that there is a mention of the punds, that is the scale in which they have to be rendered. And we see a mention of there are 23 punds which have been used here. And these Thevarams are sung at the big Shiva temples. And this has been a tradition for many, many years now. Just for your information, a few punds and their equivalent ragas that we see today are like Gandhara Panchamam, which is akin to Kedara Gaula, Natta Ragam equal to Panturali, Kaushikam Bhairavi, Natta Padai Gambira Natai, Panchamam equal to Ahiri, Shikamaram Nada Namakriya and so on. We'll now look into one Thevaram in the Gandharam Pand, which is equal to the Navaroj Ragam that we sing today. மந்திரமாவது நீரு வானவர் மேலது நீரு சுந்தரமாவது நீரு துதிக்கப்படுவது நீரு தந்திரமாவது நீரு சமயது உள்ள நீரு செந்துவர் வாயுமை பங்கள் திருகலவாயால்
நீரே திருஅலவாயான் திருநீரே ஆற்றல் அடல் விடை ஏறும் ஆலவாயான் திரு நீற்றை போற்றி புகழினிலாவும் பூசுர ஞான சம்பந்தல் தேற்றி திறனுடன் தீப்பிணியாயின தீர சாற்றிய பாடல்கள் பத்தும் வல்லவர் நல்லவர் தாமே சாற்றிய பாடல்கள் பத்தும் வல்லவர் நல்லவர்
Coming back to the contemporary composers, I'd just like to present a small composition to show how simple and communicative language can have a wider reach among the Rasikas and form also that beautiful connect. கண்ட நாள் முதல் நாய் காதல் பெருகுதடி கண்ட நாள் முதல் நாய் காதல் பெருகுதடி கண்ட நாள் முதல் நாய் காதல் பெருகுதடி கையினில் வேல் பிடித்த கருணை சிவபாலனை கண்ட நாள் முதல் நாய் காதல் பெருகுதடி கையினில் வேல் பிடித்த In the Tukkadas, we also see that sometimes the Tirupugar which is sung adds a special beauty. The Tirupugar, which was composed by Sri Arunagirinadar in the 15th century, and he represents a remarkable blend of Tamil literary genius, high degree of devotion to Muruga, and musical expertise. He was one of the first to set his compositions to reverberating music in the Sandam style and setting the words within a certain length to conform to Thala. So thus he was also given the title of Sandakavi or Sandapavala Peruman. By combining the hard and soft consonants and long and short vowels in different ways, he created hundreds of compound rhythmic words. And the content, if you look at it, it is about the devotion mainly to Lord Muruga, and it is all about spiritual awakening. Now, what is this Chanda Thalam? This is one of the most unique kind of a rhythm that Sri Arunagirinadar created, and it is formed more organically based on poetic meter of lyrics. The Tirupugar songs are exemplary models in which the language is the basic rhythm of music. That is, rhythm is regulated by the words and not vice versa. This is something very interesting to observe. And we see that in Carnatic music we have the 7 swaras, which combine in so many different ways to give us so many ragas. Similarly, we see that there are basically 12 basic chandas. And by their permutation and combination, they have yielded innumerable varieties and patterns. And also he adopts a unique pattern called the Thongal, which is a pendant appended at the conclusion of each verse. So, Tanatana, Tanatanana, like this, different kinds of chandas have been very beautifully adapted and used as forms of words to give us such a variety fair in terms of the Chanda Thalam here. And we will now look into a few examples. For example, if you take the one pattern, there are different patterns in which this combination happens. In the composition Iyal Isayil Uchittavanji, you see Iyal Isayil Uchittavanji Kayarvagi, where it is like Tana Tanana Tanana Tanda Tana Tana. That is the chanda that he has used here. So one example we'll see here. Iyal Isayil Uchittavanji Kayarvagi Iravu Pagal Manadu Silvi Thuralagi Uyar Karunai Puriyumilva Kadal Moogi Unayana Gulariyubalvai Karuvagi. Another chanda pattern you see in the composition. Oru poludum iru charanesha devai tunarene tana tanana tana tanana tana tana tana. Oru poludum iru charanesha devai tunarene unadu palani malayenu oorai sevai kariyene. Or another example. Kadi modi vadad nool katriduvorum tana 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 tana. You see that in multiple ways the chandas here are found by the combination of these kind of syllables. We'll now look into a full composition, one Tirupugar, to see how the chandam has been so effectively used in the formation of words and giving it that lilting beauty. We'll do Niramaya Puratana, which is based on the chanda like Tana 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 Niramaya puradana para para paramrita nirakula chiradiga prabhayade nirasha sukaraja davarajargal paravi niraruya puradiya sujanera suralaya taradala jara jara niradiga sorupami varadi puriyame duralpugal paradina taravula paramu durogarai tarashayu Thus we see that our Carnatic concerts are a treasure trove in terms of the variety of compositions that they have to give to us. You would have seen that starting from the Varnam, the number of kritis, variety of kritis by various composers all form a part of the items till the main item comes, all these are featured. And the Tukkada actually forms a separate section where I was able to just probably show you a few examples of some of the Tukkadas that are featured in our Carnatic Kacheri. Of course, there are many more songs, many more varieties also, some of which may have been missed. But nevertheless, this is roughly the gamut of the Tukkadas that we hear in our concerts. And finally, of course, after all the Tukkada is over, we sing the Mangalam. Mangalam again is about bringing in peace, happiness, tranquility to all those who are performing on stage as well as those who are listening. So Mangalam is about that kind of a grand finale. The completion of the whole concert is marked by the Mangalam. Coming back to the Tukkadas, just to sum up, we say that the Tukkadas plays an important role in terms of lending variety. You saw that how different ragas, different languages, different ways of construction of the lyrics, the poetic excellence, so many things actually come into the fore in the domain of the Tukkadas. And also we see that mostly the ragas taken in this section are lighter ragas, and that's why also they have a very great appeal. We don't sing generally, you see that compositions in a Kambodi, Bhairavi or Thodi will not be a part of the Tukkadas. Rather light ragas like I mentioned, Yamuna Kalyani, Behag, Madhuvanti, Desh, Jaunpuri, Brindavani, and like this, many kind of ragas which have got a much more instant appeal are featured as part of the Tukkadas. And second thing is, of course, they appeal to a mass because of the fact that the manodharma aspects are not a part of this. You don't sing long alapanas or neraval or swaram to this kind of composition. So that way the form by itself is short, sweet, crisp and very nice in terms of the connect that they're able to give with the rasikas. And when we had the longer duration, that is also there. Earlier we had concerts of 3 hours, 4 hours. So at that time, many more kind of Tukkadas were absorbed. But now the concert durations are becoming lesser and lesser by the day. So we also see that the variety of Tukkadas do not really find a place. We just sing 1 or 2 songs and finish off. So probably a full-length concert gives much scope in terms of displaying a wider variety of Tukkadas. And as for the raga factor, as I said, the lighter variety. And here also it's very interesting to see that the same Tarangam or a Purandaradasar Kirtana, if it was in a ragam like Natai, obviously it could also be featured as the first item in a concert. So it's not that the Tukkada's position is actually fixed. For example, if you take the Tarangam which I mentioned, it can also be a beginning piece, it can be a mid piece or the last piece, depending on the raga in which it is performed. So that also plays an important role here. And thematic concerts, when you're having thematic concerts, for example, if you're having a Tarangam concert or a Dasar Padaram concert, in that case we see that the whole concert itself will have all the compositions by that particular composer. But otherwise, we see that the Tukkadas as a section forms a very entertaining, enlightening, enriching fair, I would say. And in fact, everybody in a concert, after all that is done in a detailed manner in terms of the heavy classy pieces, we all definitely look forward to these Tukkada pieces, which give us that kind of a, some kind of a happiness, that melody which flows actually gives that unique happiness to all of us, and that's why everybody looks forward to these Tukkadas in concerts. And as I mentioned, the Thillana and the Thurpugal generally, they feature as the last items because of the fact that they are much more lilting in their structure, much more, catchy and fast-paced. So they give some kind of a grand finale to the concert. Thus, we conclude that our whole Carnatic Kacheri, as I mentioned in the first itself, in the introduction, it's a beautiful variety fair, and which has been given to us by our great stalwarts, I would say. It has been devised so beautifully, structured so beautifully that everybody who comes to the Kacheri gets something out of it. So whether it's spiritually, you want to get something, you get. Emotionally, you want something, you get. Intellectually, something you want, you get. Just light entertainment, that also you get. Enlightenment, that also you get. What I say is, seek. Whatever you seek, you get it in that. That is the beauty of our Carnatic music, that there is no one path to seeking here. So a lay person may seek something, a knowledgeable person may seek something else. But nevertheless, whatever you seek, you get it in our Carnatic music, and that is why it stands tall and unparalleled in the world music itself in terms of being one of the most aesthetic and one of the most scientific systems, blending the two so beautifully that everybody gets enlightened through the process. And Tukkadas, as I mentioned earlier also, lends that kind of a special variety fair. And once again, I would like to thank my wonderful co-artists here, Shri Melakkaveri Thiagarajan and Shri Tillaisthanam Suriyanarayanan, for the wonderful, subtle and intricate accompaniment, because that has added so much value, I would say, in terms of the presentation also. My namaskarams to all of you.